Sam Tiger, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you on, and we'll talk about a lot of things today. You are the founder and president of Sam Tiger Management. You're also an adjunct professor at Lynn University. So can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do on a daily basis?
It depends on the day, it depends on the hour, the time of year, but depending on the day, in the morning or sometimes in the afternoon, I teach an intro to sports management course at the university. It's something that this was my third year going into it. Completely happened unexpectedly, and I love teaching. And then after that, or sometimes during class, I go through my agent work, which if anyone has ever listened to an agent speak, they typically say no 2 days are the same. So some days are busier than others, but I typically like to wake up, do what's on my schedule, and then have time to handle everything that happens throughout the day that is not scheduled, because it's always quite a bit.
Yeah, for sure. So, so before you started your own agency, you have worked with some marketing, events, player relationships. So how did you get into the sports industry in the first place?
That's a great question. So I have to go back to a story from actually graduated from an international school in Canada. And my dad, with his job, we moved around a lot. So I kind of nowhere really felt like home, and that kind of got me into sports because on Sundays, I would always watch football with my dad, and I really loved the NFL. And wherever we lived, we made that like something that was a consistent thing. So when we were in Canada, it was time to start thinking about university. And I met, well, with my father and then the American, counselor, guidance counselor that helped with colleges. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I wasn't going to dance professionally, 5'2". Doesn't really work like that. But I thought sports and entertainment, I really like it. I like the atmosphere. I was intrigued by everything going on, not just the game. When I had gone to games, I was just intrigued by the production of everything because I saw it like that at a young age. And so I said, I want to get out of the cold. I don't want to deal with the snow. So found actually the school that I teach at, Lynn. The sports management program was small, and I liked that because I had come from smaller class sizes in high school and ended up getting a degree in sport management, which at the time, it was not where it's at now. Sports management in the United States, it's a big, it's getting popular. A lot of the bigger universities most of them have adopted that program, but at the time it really wasn't. So went there, did some internships, and then like volunteer time during college, and then got a full-time internship with the Capital One Orange Bowl in Miami after I graduated. And then that led me to doing the same thing in Atlanta with the Peach Bowl. And I knew that's where I wanted to be. But it was definitely the sport management program in university that allowed me to be able to get to that level. Because when I was working at the Orange Bowl, I was with people from the big schools, the Clemsons, Alabamas, UNC. So I always say that what I did while I was in school helped me get to that next level because it's so competitive.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you say that now it's popular in the US with sports management. I did also sports management bachelor in Athens, Greece, and
Okay.
that is not as common. I think they have 2 programs in the whole country. Same in
Wow.
Sweden, where I live now. It's also very few programs. It's getting more, but still small. So it's
Yeah.
nice to see that the US it's taking off to have some more opportunities for those who wants to pursue this academic career.
Absolutely. And it's ever changing as well. I mean, I'm thinking about it this past week. I wrapped up teaching yesterday. We did the NCAA, and I'm thinking to myself, with NIL, I could create a whole course around this because it's so rapidly changing, and sports and entertainment kind of go hand in hand. And I think now, well, in the States, we're seeing a lot more emphasis at the undergrad level with that. So it's good to see because it's necessary.
Yeah, for sure. So after your sports management degree, you are also an NFLPA certified contract advisor, and you have taken the um, the sorry, the
Exam,
agent exam.
yes.
Sorry, yeah, the
Yes.
agent exam. So when did you decide that you wanted to be an agent, and how was the process to go through the agent exam?
That's a funny question. And I always say that mine was kind of a crazy, just I met the right people. It happened at a time that I didn't really expect it to. But to kind of continue with the story I just told, after I worked in college football, I I sat down and I thought, well, because I hate to say this, but a lot of people assume that you do your internships, then you start making a little money with the internships. Hopefully that leads to a full-time job. There's only so many jobs and there's a lot of people. So it didn't lead to a full-time job. And that was okay. I knew I had gained so many skills and I'm thankful for those opportunities. But then I really had to kind of sit, and I was in my early 20s and I'm like, what's next? What do I want? Just one of those moments, because with my career, I was doing full moves. I mean, uprooting myself, moving. And I sat back and I said, I think I'd like to actually work in the pro side, because that's where my heart really is. I didn't grow up in a college football town. It was always NFL. That was kind of where my fan side of things was, but also what I felt, it just felt right. So I applied to some jobs in the NFL, events, marketing, community relations, things that I had done over the last 2.5 years. And I did get interviews and I got fairly far, but I did miss out when then they hired people that were their former interns or NFL interns. And I understood, although it was frustrating. I look back and now, and I told my students yesterday, make sure, you understand that if you want to go into college football, try to work in intern in college football, because time is important as well. Timing in this business is huge. So did not get those roles. And I actually went and started working a part-time job. I knew I had to do something because I was going to go crazy just waiting, and you apply to things. And at the time we had been in Buffalo. We were in Buffalo, New York. That's where my parents were. So I moved back and just wanted to be around family. I didn't have family in Atlanta where I was living, and started working. And that was, Bills Mafia, if you know the NFL, the Bills fan base is very, very passionate. And I started to just think, okay, well, if I'm not going to be able to right now get a job in the NFL, I really no, I can plan. I knew what I could do. So I could plan events really well, because that's what I did. Marketing, public relations. I am good at, working a lot. I guess that sounds crazy, but I can do this. So I started reaching out on social media to some agents and local people, and just started reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love to talk. And that led me to connecting with some local NFL agents in the Buffalo area. We met and really just had a partnership that I would plan events for some of their, and look for opportunities off the field for some of their clients, which led to some successful things in the Buffalo market. You can probably see Fred Jackson. That was a very, very, kind of important moment in my career, I guess you could say, planning those events and the success, but also working with those agents who they're close to my age, very, very close. And I saw, okay, I could do this. And me being me, I don't like limitations. So with the marketing, I could only do marketing. I couldn't call the NFL teams and negotiate contracts, but I was always intrigued by that. My dream job as a child was to actually be an agent. And so fast forward, I went back and got my master's and said, I'm going to just do this. Luckily passed the test, and it was hard, but it was not something that I didn't feel prepared for.
And you passed it on the first try, so it's a lot of studying.
It is. And the passing rate is typically not under 40%. So it's a very low passing rate.
Yeah. And I know that you know also Kelli Masters, who's been a guest on this podcast. So how has she helped you in your career?
The story's funny too. I always say if you can see something and see yourself in someone in an industry, maybe you don't see the representation, it helps. And early on, it was years before, it was actually when I was working for the Orange Bowl, one of my friends said, "You remind me of my agent." And I said, "Oh, who is that?" And at the time, it was when Instagram was really just taking off. And I saw her and I said, "Wow, that's really cool." And this was years before I took the test. So I started going to the NFL Combine years before I was certified to network and just see, okay, is this a space I want to be in? Because it's very overwhelming. Everyone is there. It's a lot. You have to be very comfortable in yourself and your skin to be there and network, especially if you don't necessarily have a player in the combine or you don't have a job in the NFL. So I DM'd Kelli and she responded, and she actually was speaking on a panel at a conference that I was at. So I ended up going to her table and we connected, but it always stands out to me that she responded to me when I'd sent so many messages out. And those people that responded, the agents in Buffalo, Generation Sports Group, and Kelli, they're now, I consider them my close friends. But it's just giving that time, but also just little phone calls, things like that, helping with things along the way. But also too, I respected their time. Because I think a lot of times now there's so many people that want to connect and this and that. So I think it's kind of an intricate balance with building relationships with mentors. But I was so lucky to find Kelli as well as Shane and Christian.
It's funny you say that, because when I reached out to Kelli to be on the podcast, I think I went through her website and like the contact form, and I just wrote that I'm having this podcast. This was very early on the podcast. I have very few previous episodes, and I just wrote, and then I signed with my name, number, and email. And then a while later, I just get a call from a US number, picking it up, and then it's her. And she's like, "Oh, hi, are you doing this? I'd like to do it." And that was so, as you say, like an NFL agent with like so much on their plate, like, and they take time out of their day to talk to you and do that. So that really speaks to her character, I think, and how genuine and nice she is.
Absolutely. And her clients see that. I was in Oklahoma this past summer for her birthday, and just to see the amount of people, like she has a book, I'm going to plug Kelli's book, High Impact Life, and just to see literally the amount of lives that she has impacted throughout her career. But it's not easy. I mean, it is not, especially starting it on your own and being independent. For me, it's so hard. It's hard to be there when people are saying you as a female, "Oh, what are you doing here?" or in general. So she's literally, to me, the reason why I saw myself becoming who I am today.
So,
and actually, she told me, she was the one that actually told me I passed the test.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it was fun. I get a call from her, and of course she's on a subway or some train going to see a player, and she's like, "Well, I have the results. I found out." And I knew I passed, but it was really very full circle for me. This person I looked up to and developing this friendship and the mentorship with told me I passed the test. So it was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talking about mentorship, because we talked about Kelli, now you mentioned a few names additional to hers, but you are also a mentor now for some future agents and entrepreneurs. So can you speak to the importance of mentorship, maybe specifically to the agent industry or the sports industry?
I think it's something that when you can connect with somebody and not only talk about the positive things, but also the day-to-day and all the negative things, that's the important part of it. Especially as an agent, there are going to be things that happen where you're not going to find somebody posting about that on Instagram. You're just not. All of us get fired. All of us have moments where you go, "What? Did I do something wrong?" And whether you're with a big firm or not, it's just the nature of the business. It's crazy. And to have somebody to go to and trust that, number one, they're not going to judge you about it because they've probably been through it, but to also know when you talk to them, it's going to be okay. That's huge, because passing the test is just the first obstacle of so many that you're going to go through as an agent, especially in the NFL, when it's so competitive. It's such a, there's not a book that tells you how to do it and how to be successful. There are books, but you're going to go through the life cycle of it. And just to have somebody to go to and then feel that kind of relief, because you can blame yourself on a lot of things. And it is very personal when you're representing other people.
Yeah, for sure. So you got your sports management degree, you passed the exam, you got yourself a mentor, you went to these events even before you were certified, but now also afterwards. So how did you sign your first clients?
I just went ahead and just acted like I had been certified. I didn't really announce it because I had done marketing in the space, and I kind of felt like I'm here. So I didn't really make a big announcement because I knew that that was going to be something that would be against me. Well, you're so new. So I knew what the business was. And I think some advice I would give younger agents or newer agents, not necessarily young, because you can take the test at any point in your career. Start developing your network of team contacts, scout contacts before you're certified, because you're already behind. The agents found out last week. So it was something that it was difficult, but not. I think I did not understand the cost, I guess, of I understood there was a cost, but I didn't understand the cost of the draft picks, I guess you could say. And I also didn't really understand. I thought, oh, okay, they're a starting player, they're a captain, they have good stats, but I did not understand the importance of the other components. So I signed players, and it was around the COVID time, so it was difficult. And then going through COVID as a newer agent, to start out was difficult, but I really just reached out, and I knew my social media had stuff to show. So I didn't really think too much of it. To be honest with you, I kind of just went ahead and did it.
Yeah. And you started your own agency right away, right? So you didn't go
I
through.
thought, correct, pardon, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I had Sam Tiger Management as the marketing side, so I just added the full it was now full service then.
I see. So you have said also that Aaron Williams from Buffalo Bills was a key player that you attest your success to. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Aaron. So yes, he's a client that really helped me get a thicker skin. I'll say that. And that's some advice that I got over the years. Was something would happen, and I would just overthink it, or wonder why is that happening, or did I do something wrong, especially when it's your own company and you want to do a good job and you're dedicating everything to it. And I learned that we have to remember that all of the athletes we represent, everybody is different. Just because you might have had one sort of interaction with one doesn't mean that that's going to happen with another. And I really just learned that his career was unique, second round draft pick with Buffalo, and then had to retire due to injury. And just kind of learning from him and from his family, and doing just, he had an idea, and to be able to find ways to put those ideas to bring them to life, and also just kind of navigate through something that I had not navigated through before, really helped me with him. And there were times where it was frustrating because I felt like I was failing, and I had to kind of take a step back and look at it and say, okay, maybe let's take a little step back and go, especially during the pandemic, there's only so much you can do. And then now, I mean, we're in a completely different place still. And I have current NFL clients and I still work with my former players. But with Aaron, it was someone that I went through different kind of moments and experiences with him that really opened my eyes to the NFL, I guess you could say.
Mm. And you said that he showed you that you need to have a tough skin, and that was something I spoke to Kelli about as well. It's being a woman in such a male-dominated field, then I assume that the thick skin comes in handy.
It does. It definitely does. And it's something where I said this the past week. I go, there are things that I go through now that 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago if that would have happened to me in a marketing situation or even in general, I would have been upset about it. And now I handle it, but when I handle it, I don't take it with me the rest of the day and sit and wonder, but also in this business too, a lot of times you think, well, maybe I didn't execute something or they asked something and I can't get it done, right? Because there are times agents, I mean, and this happens a lot of times, can you do this for me? Can you get me this? Can you, and sometimes it's in short notice, sometimes it's something that isn't really realistic. And I think when you're first starting out, you're like, I have to do this or I might be fired. And you learn sometimes you do. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that doesn't happen, but I also learned that, there are times that like, if you just explain things and the client sees you working, usually it's okay.
Hmm. And you have said that it's really important to have a professional relationship as an agent, and we spoke about that before. So that comes in there, right? To have this relationship with the player and to have a clear communication with what is expected of you and of the player.
Absolutely. And also too, I mean, I always say there's a balance. There's a balance between professional and also allowing them to get to know who you are. But that should happen organically. I don't believe in forced relationships. I think sometimes it happens, male and female agents, where they're kind of forcing things and it doesn't seem natural. I don't believe in that because it doesn't work. Once again, it does not work, and it's trust your gut. I mean, if something seems great and this and that, I mean, it is what it is. But I believe wholeheartedly in, I don't believe in transactional relationships with clients. A lot of agents do. They say, don't care. And I'm sure Kelli would say this too. How can you not care? I mean, if something happens, how can you not care when you're fighting for these clients for their football careers, and then after football, when you get to know them and their families, but that does come with disappointment sometimes. However, I'll never be a transactional agent.
No. And neither would Kelli, as you said. And in the episode that I had with her, she told a story about one of her players having an MRI scan and was super scared. And she sat there with him, telling him everything will be fine, and really going the extra mile.
Yeah, I know male agents that have done the same thing too at the combine. I mean, it's the approach. And I say this all the time, and I say it to other agents that kind of criticize me. I've been criticized for that. You care too much. And I say, I really don't. Some of my current clients would probably laugh because they're like, you're mean. I'm like, I'm not mean. I'm just straightforward and direct. But you do what you have to do. However, I truly believe, we can't do everything for them, but that also is helping them grow, because part of this relationship is football doesn't last forever. Whether you're a first round draft pick, an undrafted player that makes a team, part of the place I see my role is helping them with what's next after. Because whether or not, you become a player like Aaron or Fred Jackson that's able to still get events and use their name and their careers to be able to engage with fans after, some players won't. But also too, you're more than just football. And a lot of agents don't care, and that's it is what it is. Is it right? Wrong? I don't know. I'm not to judge.
So you have your management agency, and you said you started it before you passed the exam. So now it's a full circle, or you can offer all the different services.
Mhm.
A lot of, and as an agent, I guess there's a lot of contracts involved as well. You
Mhm.
have a large educational background, but you don't have a law degree. Was that something that you ever considered?
N- No, it was something that at the time when I was going to go take the test, um, I talked to the agents in Buffalo. One had their MBA and the other was an attorney. And I saw the roles that both played in their firm, which was small. And I saw myself as the one that went and got the MBA, just in general. But I knew I enjoy contracts. Personally, and so I kind of put a focus on that with getting my master's. But I think now more than ever, it's very important to be able to kind of do everything in terms of marketing, nonprofits. I mean, the more hats you can wear or at least advise on to be able to help, the better in these days. So I saw the MBA route being the best for me at
Hmm.
that point in my life.
Yeah. Okay. I guess that makes sense. I mean, it's not a prerequisite. It's some people prefer to have it, but as you said, you can do it as well within MBA as well.
Yeah, and the truth is this, most agents work another job. They just do. It's a very costly business.
Hmm.
And I just saw where my experience was that was the best route. And half of the battle for a lot of agents is even getting a contract, like getting that rookie contract. So throughout that time, you're not using any of your law. I hate to say, you're just
Hmm.
not. You're helping with, you have to be a travel agent, you have to be all these different things. So at least that's what fit for me,
Hmm.
knowing I was going to be doing this myself.
Hmm. What is it that is so costly? Is it covering expenses for the player, or is it your own expenses, traveling, or what are
Oh,
both? And you're
yeah.
taking, so especially I'm thinking if you're signing, let's say, a prospect, someone who doesn't make the big bucks yet, then that's a risk. If this
Oh,
player doesn't get signed, then you're putting, let's say thousands of dollars. I don't know if it's more, how much more on this player, and then that's a big gamble. So how do you
absolutely.
weigh that risk? So I guess it's a lot of risk management involved as well.
It is. You become an investor, and if you have an investor in your agency, or you have to make sure you're navigating. So I think that's why a lot of agents don't necessarily last. There are limitations on our certification. So every year, it's around this time, I think it's due in like 2 weeks, we have dues. So we pay dues to our union, as well as we have to keep our insurance current. So that's about $3,000 every year, no matter if you have a client or not, just to remain in good standing and active. And then in terms of the draft, it can range. I mean, a first rounder can go from several $100,000 because money's advanced. And then late rounders, I mean, it can be training in general is usually something that's covered. I mean, you're really these days not going to get a client that is drafted without training them, or even the priority free agent players. And that can range from 10 to 20,000.
Hmm.
So that's a lot of money for people that, once again. So for me, it's talking to teams about prospects and also truly getting their opinion on where these guys will go, because the mock drafts and stuff, we don't look at them because those guys are not the ones talking to teams. So like, for example, the Seahawks, I just got a text from one of their scouts about somebody I asked about, and he'll be honest, and it could change, don't get me wrong. But if I see somewhere that this prospect's a third rounder and they have him as undrafted, I'm probably going to go to another team. And if they say undrafted, it's definitely probably in that range. They're
Hmm.
not going to jump from that to that. So the teams are the ones employing the players. So that's where I look at the investment part of it to make sure that we're not overspending, because that obviously, it's a commission-based business. So if the player is not on a team, you're not getting your money back.
Yeah. I spoke a while back to on one of the episodes about contracts in soccer and some funny clauses that were in the contract. So one guy he was not allowed to go to space. Some had he wasn't allowed to ski. Some things like that. Is there something that you have seen with your players that could be considered, I guess, odd or funny?
Yeah, that's funny you asked that. That's actually one of my students' assignments, is to analyze an NFL contract. So the NFL contracts that the players sign are all essentially fillable. So it's a standard contract, and then there's addendums. For those that don't know what that means, it's additional legal documents, maybe that has their incentives on it or certain things that they are required to do, signings, things like that. But yeah, I forget, is it clause? I should know this, but there's a clause that says no risky activities, but it does not specify anything. So that leaves it open. And what might be risky to me is not risky to you, and vice versa. So it's something to be careful about. I remember right after Patrick Mahomes signed his blockbuster deal, he went to the YMCA and was playing basketball, and it was put on social media, and he got a call from the GM like, Patrick, no basketball, because obviously that is risky. Even though he wasn't playing in a huge tournament or something, they deem that risky. But there's no specific details. So I always say, just like, use caution, don't do anything crazy, but things happen. And I think that's something that, once again, I think if they were to have to put one thing, they'd have to put 100 things.
Yeah. So you are not allowed to.
Space is interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
But you are not allowed to put in specifics into the contract. It's just so it just says no risk activity, and you're not allowed to specify.
They don't specify it. That's a clause just in there.
Yeah.
So it gives the teams the power.
Yeah, that's true. I assume also that can become like a legal battle as well, as you said. Some people say that basketball is risky. Some say that it's not. So who decides that?
Exactly. And it's like, especially in the off season, just be careful what you're doing. But it's difficult. I mean, once again, there could be a scenario where I mean, we've seen it happen. I live down in Florida. People just are on boats. That's just part of the culture down here. You're on a boat, maybe you're not operating the boat and something happens. Is it considered risky to be on a boat if you're not driving? It's just same thing with a car, I mean, or a golf cart. So they leave it very vague, and that's something that, like I said, if they were to put one thing, it would have to be 100 other things.
Yeah, I see. So yeah, the space clause was, I think, that the player had talked about in an interview that he wanted to go to space, and then they put that into cover, the team put it into cover themselves, so he wouldn't go in case, he wanted to.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, they don't do that. At least I haven't seen it. They just put a blanket, like, very bold statement. So don't do risky stuff. And they don't really have that much time. I don't think and if a player were to go to space, I'm sure the NFL would be involved at some capacity.
Yeah.
It'd be a big spectacle and probably a documentary.
That's true. So we know that you have your own company, you have a lot to do there. You're also a professor, as we said before, but you're also a host of a podcast, right? Is that still going on beyond the negotiation?
It is. I need to get better, but it's something that I started with a friend, and then we both, get so busy, and I edit it and cut it up myself and produce it ourselves. So I need to get back into it, but it's really just an open conversation, kind of like we're having now, about things that aren't talked about. Yeah, I always say, like, even myself, if you go to my Instagram, I'm not going to post a photo oh, I got fired today, or, my client got cut. That's really, none of us are doing that. We're not. And it happens, and it's real, and it happens to everybody. I mean, you can be, Drew Rosenhaus, you can be one of the players that has the most active clients, and that one of your clients is still going to get cut. What happens when that happens? What do you do? How do you approach it? And then also talking about us too, because I think I saw it on Twitter recently, or X, whatever you want to call it. Nobody really talks about the agents or the people behind the scenes. And I think a lot of times, I don't know if you've seen Jerry Maguire, but like one of the first scenes where he's like, there's me. And, it's like cut out, like he's half in the photo, half not. I laugh. My clients keep me in the photo, so thank you guys. But it's a very realistic depiction, you're there, and we go through these feelings too. So that was kind of my inspiration for the podcast, was to just openly talk about things that are not talked about when people think of sports agents.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I encourage everybody who I talk to, because they have stories to tell, that they should start their own podcast. And as you said, it's a lot of work. I understand that better than most because I'm doing it. But I think it's a great thing. And also as an educational platform for maybe aspiring agents to know, actually, they don't only get the Instagram version of the, all the great things that happen. They also get what happens behind the scene. And on that point, you have said in some other interview, I think, that in sports in general, I don't know a successful person who hasn't worked a job that has paid poorly, worked insane hours, missing holidays, and so forth. So, and that's the sport industry for many people. So just to know that, so you know what you get into, and to get inside information from someone as yourself, I think that's a really great source.
Yeah. And I like to be open about it because it's the truth. I mean, it's even my students, I'm 32, so they're a lot younger than me, but I say, this is what I did. You guys, a lot of them I can see look up to me, especially the female students I have, and even the male students. And I said, but I had to do this. And, there was a point where I was doubting myself many times, and I was told no. I'm told no a lot of times. I mean, it's just the nature of the industry, but to actually hear it and see it. And like I said, if you can see somebody that, once again, they're being open and honest with you, not just talking about their accolades, I think that's just so important because it makes it realistic. And I think we need more of that in the sports world. We're getting there. And I think it's amazing that we have podcasts and we have different platforms now to be able to talk about things. Especially podcasts, because I think we all kind of open up a bit more. We're not going to go on TikTok, and maybe some people. I'm not a TikTok person, but it's so important because part of me too, when I was starting out, I looked at some of these people like Kelli, and I'm like, oh, she's so awesome. She's so cool. She's doing these amazing things. But I thought, well, I don't, where I'm at right now, I don't think I can. How do I even get there? What does it look like? So now having the ability to talk about it, you can see, okay, Professor Tiger had to be in a mascot suit. I did. I was too short, so they took me out of it. But you have to do some really not so fun things to get there, and that's sports.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think you should get on TikTok as well. It's fun, and it's a good marketing tool
I
for
know.
yourself.
I should.
For yourself.
I know. I know. Ugh, ugh.
A lot of great advice so far. Is it? I know you have said that your mantra is keep showing up. So, but any other great tips or insight for an aspiring agent?
Just okay, well, keep showing up is, for me, even day in, day out, it's just like, wake up, do what you have to do, don't dwell, like, feel how you feel. And I even tell this to clients, don't let it completely take over, because you might even in the NFL, cut down day is terrible. It was a couple weeks ago. For any agent, cut down day is awful. I mean, nobody likes cut down day. fans do because they project, oh, this is the 53-man roster. For us, we're sitting by our phones waiting, and you either get the call and you can like the tone of the player, because usually the player will call you before the team does if they're not necessarily a lock to make the team. And it's not great when you get the call that they're cut. We feel it probably, but the next day, you could get a call that they're going somewhere else. They are claimed on waivers. So keep showing up day in, day out. And also, don't, closed mouths don't get fed. I say that a lot. Just ask. If you think about, just ask. Someone might say that's an insane thing to ask, but at least you'll know. The more you stay in your head thinking about, should I do this or should I do that? Or, then I did that a lot of my life. And I wish I would have taken my own advice. I was thinking things and thought I wasn't going to be this or be that. So ask. Obviously don't ask crazy things, but it's a little crazy. You never know. If you don't ask, you will not know.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Is there something I haven't asked you yet that you feel is important to mention?
I think we covered a lot of really great points. I guess for you, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What made you start this podcast?
Yeah, so I have a sports management degree as yourself, and I've been involved with sports all my life, mostly ice hockey and soccer. So always had a sports interest and wanted to at some point start a podcast when that became, more and more popular. But then, there's never the right time to do anything. But because you always say you have too much time, you have other things to do, and so on and so forth. And then COVID hit, and I was on furlough so once a week I was working 4 days out of 5, and everyone was working from home. All activities were canceled. So I was like, okay, if there is a time, there is now. So I met with a family friend who has a podcast in another industry, and got some pointers of what to do, and then basically jumped in with both feet. I have no media background, no journalism background. This is me with my buying a microphone and my interest for the sports industry and my curiosity to learn more. And then it was just reaching out. Yeah. So reaching out to people that I found interesting in the field and just, pick their brain. And now it's 3 years later and 100+ episodes. So it's just rolling on. So it's gone fast. I've learned a lot, but it's really fun. And as I said, I encourage everybody who has a strong interest for something, or like yourself, that you have so much to share, to start a podcast, because I think it's a really great type of media, as you said, because it's not a strict interview. It's not really time sensitive either, and you can have this more relaxed conversation. And I think that it's really good media.
Well, congratulations. And I think you sharing that kind of I'll end on this. Learn as many different things as you can, I think, and you can probably agree with me, right? I didn't learn editing photos on, a photo, for graphics for things in college. I did not learn that. I was not in that area. I didn't learn certain things. So whether you're in school, and you can take certain classes as an elective. I took a lot of public relation courses, and I write press releases now, and I do a really good job at it. But I took that class. I took a broadcasting class. It was really fun, but learning different skills. And even if you're after school, like newer agents after university, or learn different things, because you never know when it might help, or just in general, it also adds, you can put that on your resume, that whatever you're looking for, because that's the world we're living in now. Like, we can do a lot of different things on our smartphones, but don't put yourself in a box. Like, I don't know how to do that. Well, I don't, but I'll learn. And nowadays you can learn. So I think that's my best advice, because I've talked to a lot of agents that younger people, younger than me, well, I don't know how to make a graphic. I said, well, I didn't either. And my first couple were awful, but now I think they're pretty good. So just learn, be open to learning too, because it can only help you.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a closing tradition on this podcast, and it is there someone in your network that you think would be a good guest for this podcast?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yes. I think one of my former clients, Kamar Aiken, would be a great guest. He is an undrafted player that went 8 years in the NFL as a wide receiver, which is crazy. And also a business owner, someone who just has been through it in the NFL, but also has a business mindset. And he's really helped me out in my career in so many ways, teaching me different things, and his perspective on sports and on the business and just business in general is fantastic. So
That's good advice. A good name. I will keep that in mind.
happy to connect you.
Thank you. Sam
Absolutely.
Tiger, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly enjoyed this.